thrilling, exciting, exhilarating. While we might completely understand how these words could apply, we rarely find that they're used to describe one's relationship with the Great Lakes. Instead, maybe peaceful, serene, or beautiful. These descriptors just seem more organically at home around these waters. In this modern day of high demand and high output living, supplemented only by flashing screens and yammering podcast hosts, the Great Lakes display a very unique ability. They can cut through the noise and transform us. And despite all of their power and size and occasional ferocity, they have a melancholy gentleness about their methods, which can deeply affect even the most unique of us. Hello, and welcome, my freshwater friends, to episode 12 of the About the Water podcast, an exploration of high strangeness on and around the Great Lakes. Today, we travel to silent and calm Lake Erie waters to experience a transformation unlike anything we've heard so far, one that leaves not even a whisper of a voice echoing about the water. Episode 12. Off. This tube full of people, these disgusting people, was enough to make Izzy's skin crawl. The well-dressed man 3 aisles up, sitting next to his new drive-through chapel bride, he's still glowing from the one-night stand he had the evening before his wedding. The only thing keeping her mouth shut is the fact that her affair took place the night after the wedding. Or how about this guy across the aisle, pretending to sleep? He's trying to figure out how to explain to his wife and kids that it took him 15 minutes to lose every nickel they had spent 15 years saving. The flight was everything that Izzy had expected. The kids on board hated the parents for dragging them along. The parents on board regretted bringing their kids. And everyone was either worried about what they had lost or what they may have picked up. Viva Las Vegas, she mumbled. Sitting to her right was Izzy's lifelong best friend and current roommate, Monica. Monica had noticed Izzy's soured expression. "How much do you hate me right now, Iz?" Monica asked. Izzy could sense that Monica genuinely felt awful. Good. That's what you get for dragging a highly sensitive telepath to Las Vegas to cheat at poker. Izzy grinned internally. Monica was squirming, begging for absolution. And any second now, her internal monologue would boil over, and she would have to verbalize it all over again. "How much do you hate me, Iz?" Izzy turned sideways with her back to Monica as she shoved the tissue-thin airplane pillow behind her head, remaining silent. "You're marinating in my guilt, aren't you?" Monica asked, smacking Izzy on the arm, at which point Izzy uttered the last word she would say during the entire flight back to Columbus, Ohio. Yep. Izzy had possessed her psychic abilities for as long as she could remember, and like many people with such a gift, her powers grew in strength as she grew in age. As a young adult, she began to learn to control her abilities, and often enjoyed taking full advantage of them. She would win arguments with her parents and siblings, simply by countering any arguments before they had a chance to become vocalized. She would cheat on school quizzes and tests, simply by tuning into the good students as they read aloud in their mind. But as she entered her early high school years, Izzy noticed that her gift was slowly becoming a curse. The inner monologues of those around her became like radio stations that she couldn't turn off. She always knew what her crushes were thinking. She could read all of her friends' insecurities, and she knew all of her teachers' dirty secrets. And in time, they all came to know that she knew. Most people would avoid her altogether. Some would try to use her like a fortune cookie, asking for detailed information about their futures, at which point Izzy would have to explain to them that she was not Miss Cleo, nor was she Doc Brown. Izzy was not clairvoyant. She couldn't see or know anything beyond what anyone else in the room could. She wasn't a medium, and she never once communicated with or experienced the presence of someone who wasn't there in the flesh. Izzy was a psychic with a specific talent for telepathy. Once people understood what that meant, that she could read their thoughts in real time, they too would distance themselves. Everyone except Monica. Monica was unlike everyone else. She didn't seem to have anything to hide, and she didn't seem to want anything. Just Izzy's friendship, and the occasional financial bailout by way of poker winnings. And although the sheer density of people in Las Vegas was unbearable, Izzy was happy to help her friend. Monica was a good one. And Izzy wasn't about to complain about the $30,000 she had managed to put in her own pocket over the course of a single weekend. In a gesture which, of course, Izzy knew was coming, Monica rested her hand gently on Izzy's shoulder. Without saying a word, she assured Izzy they would be out of the airport in 30 minutes tops, and in no time they would be on the road to the small town of London, Ohio, where they both lived. Population 10,000, about the max that Izzy could handle. And while Monica's promise was sincere, it couldn't have turned out any farther from reality. Hour 1. The plane just sat at the gate, but with no explanation from the crew as to why nobody was allowed to on board. Izzy could sense that the flight crew and the pilots had no idea as to why either. The overall excited green and golden vibes that made Las Vegas somewhat tolerable were now giving way to orange and red waves of anger from those on board, waves which hit Izzy like a migraine. Hour 2. The luggage still wasn't at baggage claim, and with every passing second, the irate internal chatter of those around Izzy got louder and louder. They might as well have been screaming in her ear. Hour 3. Monica's pile of garbage car failed to start. The collective thoughts now of the nearly 1 million Columbus residents began to sound like distorted firecrackers in Izzy's ears. Hour 4. Monica shouted for Izzy to slow down as she ran back inside the airport and towards the car rental counters. She had to get out of there. Izzy secured a car, all the while leaving the rental clerk wondering why she was being shouted at by some crazy lady who was covering her ears with her hands. Hour 5. Izzy was in tears. The noise was unbearable, and so was the traffic. Monica was at the wheel, watching her best friend weep uncontrollably while curled up into a ball on the passenger seat. Hour 5.5. Traffic had not budged. Monica took action. Confirming that Izzy did indeed opt for the full coverage on the rental insurance, she veered the Mitsubishi Mirage off the shoulder of the gridlocked I-270, driving at full speed down an embankment. A small ditch nearly ripped off the front bumper, but they were free. The residential streets were wide open, free of traffic. As Monica pulled over to find a better route home, Izzy looked up at her with tired eyes. "Monty, just drive. Please, just drive." After watching her best friend pass out from exhaustion, Monica did as Izzy asked. She picked a direction and just drove. Several hours later, Izzy came to. All 5 of her senses seemed to be battling for dominance. Her eyes hurt. Based off the pinkish golden hue pouring into the car, the sun had risen not too long ago. The outside light was so blinding that she could barely make out any shapes. A pungent smell was forcing its way into Izzy's lungs. It was so putrid that she could taste it. It was sour, sickening. Monica must have removed her shoes when she parked the car. Every fiber of the cloth seat seemed to poke Izzy through her clothes. She had to get out of that car. The moment she did, she could hear the deafening screams of 100-foot-tall birds of prey. She couldn't see them, but she could hear them screeching and beating their wings, swooping huge amounts of air as they closed in for the kill. "Okay, all right, Izzy, hold on. Get yourself together," she said to herself. "Those are what? Those are seagulls. Okay, my ears are overly sensitive for some reason, but they're seagulls. What else can we hear? We can hear waves. Okay, what else? The sun. The sun is too bright to see. We experienced this before, after the eye doctor, when our pupils were dilated. Grab my sunglasses from the side pocket of the open car door and not enough. Okay, no problem. Monica's got hers in the center console. I'll just grab them, slide them over mine. Looks silly, but okay, that's a little better. What was... Someone just shouted my name. There was a large metal boom. No. It's just Monica getting out of the car. Okay. Izzy, are you okay? Monica rubbed Izzy's back while she tried to make sense of her surroundings. Then, despite all of the unusual stimulations and sensations that Izzy was experiencing, what happened next was truly odd. An experience that Izzy had never had before. Someone had managed to startle her. Excuse me, ladies, is everything all right? Do you two need some help? A kind-looking older gentleman extended a hand to help them up. Izzy had no idea he was there. Where am I? Izzy asked. The old man looked confused, but replied politely. You're in the parking lot for the Jackson Street Pier, miss. Monica quickly added, We're in Sandusky, as I just kept driving north until we hit Lake Erie. I couldn't drive any farther. Monica thanked the man on their behalf and assured him that they were fine, to which the old man gave a nod and walked off. Monica and Izzy sat down on a park bench as Monica joked. He must have thought we were drunk or hungover, one of the two. Izzy replied with a half laugh before she stopped cold. She looked up at Monica, with her jaw dropped and her eyes wide. Monica, Izzy said, I don't have any idea what he thought. Izzy stood up and looked around. There were construction workers nearby. There were groups of people walking down the street. She saw cars moving all around, filled with families and excited kids. Monica knew without Izzy having to say a word. You can't hear them, can you? She asked Iz. Izzy turned around, wearing an expression of absolute disbelief. She looked at Monica. I need to see if this is this... Izzy was scrambling for words. Monica, she said, your feet stink. Monica looked taken back. Monica, you're a terrible driver, and Izzy pointed at Monica. And your dress looks like it's made from a couch that I once threw up on. Monica was appalled. Izzy could see it in her expression. She could tell that she was annoyed by the way she suddenly took an aggressive stance, but she couldn't hear it. She heard nothing. With a shout of joy, Iz hugged Monica. Okay, you've gone nuts and I'm hungry, Monica said. Let's get you some breakfast and get you sorted out. Where do you want to go? For the first time in her life, Izzy replied. Someplace crowded. Someplace really, really crowded. A month came and went. Izzy found herself the guinea pig in a series of experiments set up by Monica. And 31 crowded breakfasts later, they had finally made sense out of everything. Hypothesis 1. The Columbus fiasco had effectively broken Izzy. Her circuits had been so overloaded that she simply lost her abilities. Result? Negative. When the pair tried to return home to London, Ohio, her abilities turned right back on, and when she once again sought cover in Sandusky, her external senses would always become briefly overstimulated, seemingly overamping themselves, trying to compensate for her sudden lack of telepathy. Hypothesis number 2. Sandusky has some kind of power. Perhaps it's on a ley line, or maybe the geological composition prevents telepathy. Result: negative. They realized that Izzy could move anywhere along the Lake Erie shoreline, and her mental radio would remain off. The numbing effects weren't localized to Sandusky, and even proved effective near some of the other neighboring Great Lakes. Hypothesis 3. There's something about the water. Result: affirmative. The pair had figured out that as long as Izzy remained near the Lake Erie shoreline, she was free of her telepathy burden. They had figured out that by wearing amulets with Lake Erie water inside around their necks, Izzy couldn't read Monica even when they weren't near the lakes. They'd figured out that euphoria for Izzy came in the form of a ferry ride out to one of the islands near the Ohio shoreline. As Izzy and Monica sat, finishing their 30-second Sandusky breakfast, Izzy made a proposition. Look, if we're going to continue to be roomies, we need to get out of Hotel Kilbourne downtown. Let's just buy a place on one of the islands. Kelly's Island or Put-in Bay." Monica laughed. "Yeah, sure is. You'd need $1 million for a crappy place down there. Where are we going to get $1 million?" With that, Izzy leaned back in her booth. She took a moment to savor the view outside the window of the waterfront diner. She finished a tall drink of Lake Erie tap water and put on her sunglasses, giving Monica a sly grin before motioning towards the door and replying, "Viva Las Vegas." This entire podcast began with a simple question, one which I find myself going back to over and over with each episode. What is it about the water? Why do we go to it? What is the appeal of being near it, or being on it, or being in it? Beyond the descriptors that we used earlier, peaceful, serene, and beautiful, we might add one more to the list that most accurately describes the Great Lakes. Transformative. We all go wanting something. Be it small or large, we all go wanting a transformation. Maybe we want a shift in our perception, or a shift in our inner dialogue, or a shift in how we feel. Maybe sometimes you and I find ourselves so overwhelmed by other people's demands and expectations that we go to these lakes to provide ourselves with some relief. Maybe you and I aren't that different from Izzy after all. And it's these transformative trips to the water that shine a light on the secret magic that surrounds the Great Lakes. Their power lies not in what they can add to our lives, but rather what they can take away. Historically, fresh water's been ritualistic and symbolic in cleaning, cleansing, absolving, purifying, and so on. And if a few drops of water hold enough power to renew a person, imagine what 94,000 square miles of it could do. It can cleanse us of our negative thoughts, our racing thoughts, our worries about tomorrow. It can make us and our insecurities and our neurotic wants and fears feel so minuscule that they almost cease to exist. And even if it's just for a brief moment, these lakes can work like a syringe, drawing everything out of us except the current moment. A moment in which we too find our senses heightened. A moment in which we find our inner turmoil diminished. And in that beautiful moment that the Great Lakes give us, we set our minds free of the mainland and sail about the water, left with only a deep appreciation for that moment. And maybe, if we're honest, as we cruise past Izzy and Monica's 7,000 square foot estate on Put-in Bay, we find ourselves also left with a mirthful desire to be a little better at poker. And with that, thank you sincerely for listening. Izzy asked me to pass this along, this following message here before we say goodbye. And in case your abilities don't include digital telepathy, may your own incredible gifts be as grand, beautiful, and enduring as our Great Lakes. I'll see you about the water.